Chicago, for more than 100 years, the epitome of a working-class American city. Originally a magnet for European immigrants drawn to its stockyards and manufacturing plants. Chicago today is still a city of European immigrants and their descendants, but it's also become a city of American migrants, both black and white, from the rural South and their descendants. It's still a rough and tumble town, the kind of town you can learn a lot about just by following one of its main streets, Chicago Avenue. Chicago Avenue starts right at the shore of Lake Michigan, and it moves through the heart of downtown. Then as you move south, Chicago Avenue passes through a neighborhood of much more modest restaurants and shops. Then you enter what's called a changing neighborhood, a neighborhood once dominated by the huge housing project called Cabrini Green. For almost 50 years, Cabrini Green was a signature project of Chicago's housing authority. Begun in hope as temporary shelter for a racially mixed population, it soon became a permanently all-African-American ghetto, beset by gangs, crime, and violence. So bad it was decided it had to be not just replaced, but destroyed. Today, even as Cabrini Green is still being torn down, a new, very different neighborhood is growing up in its place. It's a new idea in publicly subsidized housing. Old Cabrini Green was a place where you had to be poor to rent an apartment. New Cabrini Green is reserving 30% of its places for the poor, but for 50% of them, you're going to have to be fairly rich to buy a condominium. Cabrini Green started in 1942 with these two-story structures built mostly for Italian Americans and named for the first Italian American saint, Francis Xavier Cabrini. These are the only buildings slated to survive into the new era.
1958, high-rises were built as an extension to Cabrini.
LaFay Marshall is one of a group of teenagers from Cabrini Green who work together after school at the Cabrini Connection, compiling an oral video history of their one-time home.
When I was first born, I lived 868 North Cleveland, and from there, my mother lost us. I'm a recovering addict. Be 11 years in June, clean and sober, no drugs, no alcohol. My mom had custody of my children. I have 5, 3 boys and 2 girls. We then moved from up there to Locust right here, 827. I promised when God got me clean, I was gonna do whatever I had to do to get my family back and keep my family. In 1998, my mother, she got us back, and from there I moved to the high-rises with her.
The high-rises. The Chicago Housing Authority built its massive public housing projects like Cabrini Green for one reason: someone had to. The places poor people, most of them African-American poor people, lived were wretched.
In the 1950s, there were still widespread districts in the city where people lacked hot water, running water, shared bathrooms, and there were still outhouses in small pockets of the city.
The Housing Authority's problem was how to house the most people at the lowest cost, and their answer was build big and tall. Says urban historian Brad Hunt, that was a mistake.
That model failed for 2 reasons. One, elevator buildings were not particularly appropriate for families, for large numbers of families, and they were not particularly appropriate for families with lots of children.
The second designed-in disaster, says Hunt, was the space between the buildings.
The green space in the midst of these large, tall buildings was not controlled by the tenants. They could not police that space from high up in their building. The large numbers of children looking for reasonable outlets for their social energy would turn those green spaces into the playgrounds and end up destroying the grass.
And by the time that first generation of Cabrini Green children had come of age,
no one ended up controlling it, and eventually gangs end up controlling the public space.
This is 911 North State. This is where I used to stay at from 1998 to 2004. And it's the playground where all the kids would come outside, jumping rope, playing.
no kids are out playing these days. Few people even cross the windswept asphalt between the remaining buildings. These two were looking for shelter.
I'd have been in prison 5 times. But the penal system tell you, when you get out, go to your neighborhood mental health center. They're going to provide housing.
What about squatting in a vacant apartment? He wasn't trying it.
What they'll do if they come and they see you like in a vacant apartment or something, even though if it's open,
they're gonna lock you up.
They'll lock you up. They'll put you in jail for trespass.
Yes.
This is your old building?
Yep.
Lived here all your life?
Until '05. I saw a lot of people here when he was over there. But
Still, by the time Jonathan, one of LaFay's sidekicks at the Cabrini Connection, had led us to his old high-rise, he was worried about who we might meet inside.
We all going in, or
No.
you want to go up and check?
Yeah, let's walk up. It stinks in there. So they still urinate inside the elevator. So I see they still do the same thing with the lights. They still burn them out at night.
Jonathan's tour guides you through space and times in his Cabrini.
If you ever hear someone saying that you have to know someone to really come in here, that's really true. You really do have to know someone, or they're going to try anything with you. They'll try to hurt you just because you're a new face. The more you kind of around it, you just kind of grow into it.
One thing kept Jonathan from becoming too much a part of Cabrini Green's gang-dominated life. It's the same thing that kept LaFay clear of trouble, a mother on the watch.
What about your mom? Did she have rules?
Yeah. Day in, day out. Be back at a certain time, this and that.
Moms matter, says Tyron Prett, yet another participant in the Cabrini Connection.
The kids that didn't have parents, really parents wasn't there for them. That's the kids that were turned on to the gangs and all the drugs, because they was trying to find a family.
For LaFay and her mother Veronica, the gangs were getting much too close.
People that I knew that had got killed across the street from where I stay, and I could just look out my window and just see somebody just fall to their knees to their death, and it's sad. They kept shooting and warning the gangs over there, and I was like, okay,
Time to go.
Yeah, it's time to go, And bullets had came in my window, my daughter's room and my bedroom. And I knew then it was time to go.
And they went,
I feel love.
Veronica and LaFay, to Chicago's West Side, like so many of their neighbors using government-provided housing vouchers in search of temporary housing until replacements for their Cabrini Green apartments are built. Actually, their chances of getting into the new Cabrini Green are less than 3 in 10, probably much less. Those odds against longtime Cabrini residents make Willie J.R. Fleming angry.
You said what? You want to talk to me? Are you going to do any hiring within the community? This is what I want to know.
I'm not going to talk in front of the camera. You want to talk to me in private?
You see how everybody's scared to talk in front of the camera? This is how it works in Chicago.
The label they throw at you is holdout. What are you holding out for?
Well, what we're holding out for is to ensure that the residents have the best plan in place on the table for them. We're holding out with the hopes of us actually getting one-for-one replacement housing, and that they won't destroy any more public housing until they build first.
Chair, legally is this building closed?
No, legally it's still open, but they continue to demolish the building right there, a building that's set right there, and a building that's set right there. So they have already demolished 4 buildings with not having a plan for replacement housing on the table.
Many of Cabrini's still open buildings, J.R. charges, are being demolished from the inside because of inadequate security.
This is what they call a vertical patrol. Department of Housing and Urban Development allocate allocated $13 million that was misappropriated and misspent. If this building had vertical patrol and it had a police presence, how are you able to put graffiti on the wall?
Go through his building in the white concrete William Green houses with JR, and you see what he sees.
Who in their right mind would want to live in something like this?
Mr. President of the LAC.
But follow JR's frequent adversary, Kelvin Fannin, into his still open building.
This is the only building where both the elevators are working, at one time.
Into the apartment he's lived in since he got out of prison and found work doing maintenance at the projects close to 20 years ago. And you enter a different world.
This is how I live.
A world not of injustice, but opportunity.
I've been in Cabrini Green all my life, and it's been an opportunity for me as far as job placement, and hopefully I can come out of it with a career.
In addition to being that Cabrini Green rarity and actively present father to his children, Kelvin works 2 jobs. With his savings, he thinks he'll be able to purchase one of the 20% of the new Cabrini Green apartments reserved for sale to middle-income residents.
I would be able to live and own a piece of Chicago on the north side, and it's something I can say that's my own and I can pass on to my children.
Kelvin's in, but who's being left out of the new Cabrini Green? And why do so many people want to come back to it? All that after this break.
Cabrini is whatever you make it to be,